Before I get started, if you just want the steps to upgrade your FX3 to version 3.0 or firmware version 3.0, it's right here. Sony recently released, actually about a couple months ago, firmware version 3.0 for the FX3 and version 2.0 for the FX30, which the updates are pretty similar. I've had the FX3 for about, I don't know, probably about a year and a half, and I really, really like it. And honestly, it was giving me all of the functionality I needed, not all of the functionality I necessarily wanted. They've added some really cool features, things like focus breathing compensation, anamorphic D-squeeze, and two things that I think are going to be really helpful to me that we're really missing on this camera, aside from timecode. Timecode was a big deal, but they addressed that in previous firmware updates. But DCI 4K, because my A camera is a Sony FX9, and if I'm shooting in DCI, I want to be able to match on the FX3, and I couldn't. I could only shoot in UHD. So that's huge. You also get true 24 frames a second and 1/48 shutter speed. What's also pretty cool, it just annoyed me, I couldn't name the camera. Like, I have my A camera, the FX9. This was my B camera. I literally have a piece of tape here that's B01, indicating the camera, camera B, and the card that's in there, card 1. I couldn't label that in the metadata in the camera, and you can now. You can label the camera and the reel. Anyway, here is step-by-step how to upgrade your firmware on the FX3 from I was going from version 1.0 to version 3.00. First thing we're going to do is go into the menu of the FX3 and just check what version we're at. I am in version 1.01. That's down in Setup option. Then we're going to go up to USB and USB connection and change that to mass storage. Now to find the drivers, go to Google and type in Sony FX3 firmware update. Now we're going to click on drivers and software updates for FX3. The first option you should see is going to be FX3 system firmware update version 3.0. Click on that. That will take you to a page that has a few warnings. The main warning it has is that if you have any menu settings that have been saved, like custom menus or whatever, those will probably be lost. So if you want to keep those, back them up and then reload them onto your camera. Don't know how they'll work. I mean, they should work just fine, but I didn't have any. I just had a few custom buttons, so I didn't do that. Once you've read this and you hit Mac, it's going to take you to the page where the firmware update drivers are. And honestly, this is a step-by-step guide on this page how to update the firmware on your FX3. So you don't even need me. Before you try and download and install the updated firmware, you need to download and install the Sony camera driver. It's on this page. It's a program that your computer will use to update the camera through USB. And don't connect your camera via USB-C yet. So download the Sony camera driver, install it. Once that is downloaded and installed, up at the top of the same page, you'll see a blue download button for the firmware update. So download that. It's actually going to download two versions of the firmware. One's going to be version 2.04 or 2.05, and one is going to be version 3. Now, if you're upgrading from an older version, like I'm on the original 1.01, I have to upgrade to version 2 first, and then I can upgrade to version 3. And also of note, make sure the camera battery in your FX3 is fully charged because the firmware updating process can take 30 minutes or more. Once the firmware has been downloaded, open that folder and go to 01, which should say at the very end V20X, and just follow the on-screen instructions. At this point, go ahead and turn on your camera and connect it to your computer via USB-C. It's going to check your current version. You'll just need to click next a few times, and this will take a decent amount of time, so don't turn your camera off or your computer off. Don't let your computer go to sleep. Just let it run. Walk away. Go have some coffee. Once that is done, click Finish. And it can't hurt to go into your camera and just verify the same way we did when we verified what version it was on before we updated. Verify that it has updated to version 2.04 is probably what it's going to update to. And then you just repeat the same process with version 3.00. So we're going from version 1 to version 2 to version 3. It can't go directly from 1 to 3. I hope that was helpful. This firmware update has taken a camera that I really like I think it's now a camera I love. It might be my favorite camera ever. The studio is... I moved positions, and it's again a work in progress. So, I've got a lot of cleaning up to do. That fridge is in a bad spot, and I have nowhere else to put it. So, I think I'm gonna have to cover it up with a backdrop. And actually, we'll probably be doing that today. That's why my handy dandy cordless drill is out. And then I gotta figure out what to do with all of these boxes to make them look a little more studio-like. Because this is my garage, and it's my studio, it's my workspace, and it's my storage space. So, anyway, I'll see you in the next one.